Hey techies, welcome to Two Guys Talk Tech. I'm your host Dan, and with me is my assistant, sub-host,
I'm pretty sure
breaker of technology, breaker of equipment in the studio.
I'm pretty sure I'm the host of this show.
You keep thinking that. I don't know why. I hope everyone had a great Christmas. As you can probably hear, I am sick and have been for, I don't know what, ever. It feels like forever, but it's been like a week and a half or so. But yeah, I hope everyone had a great New Year's.
So in his fever delirium,
That would be a good descriptor.
you decided to give us a list of questions we're going to go through.
Yeah, I thought it'd be interesting since we always talk about the large collection of retro computers we have, which, you know, there are some that I even have forgotten are there. I thought it'd be interesting to kind of talk about those a little bit and, you know, see which ones we personally, you know, like, dislike, etc. So, you know, kind of get a feel for what our view of the collection is a little bit.
Right.
You know, we've talked about this before. We have probably, 100 or so computers. I don't know, a few more came this week. I don't know if any of them were on our Santa list.
Yes.
Which one was on our, which ones?
Two. The VIC-20, which was mine.
That's true. Yep.
No, it was just that one.
Yeah. The other two that came in, which you guys will find out soon what they are, were not on our list, but they're still kind of cool.
No, but we got one off of my list and none off yours because your list sucked.
Boy.
I don't know. People were all up in the comments and telling me, people were messaging me being like, oh, Jacob, your list was so much better. So, you know, if you guys haven't seen that episode yet, please make sure to right over here. No, it's this side? This side.
It'd be over there.
This side.
It'd be
there. I've been doing this for years, pointing at annotations, and I still can't remember which side it is.
That's because you're directionally challenged.
Yes.
All right, so let's get to it. Out of our collection, which computer do you think is the nicest looking?
This is one of the ones we might have the same answer to. Maybe. Am I going first?
Yeah, I asked you the question.
Oh,
so
that's true.
Obviously, you're...
But you chose one as well.
I did choose one, but I asked you first.
I chose a computer that was specifically sold based on its looks and not much else. So I chose the iMac G4 Cube.
That was on my list as well. It's a very pretty computer. Interesting, though, I had a hard time deciding between it and the IBM PS2 that we have, the Model 30, because to me, it is such an iconic look. It is so business-centric, though, that I had to go with the G4 because, I mean, it's just a slick...
The only issue with the G4 is, you know, at over time, you get little micro scratches in the acrylic.
Yeah, that's going to happen with pretty much anything.
You need to, polish it, I guess, and polish your cube and make it all shiny. Now, I saw someone recently, they turned their cube into an aquarium.
I saw that. That's just crazy. Probably the best use of that case, though, huh?
Yeah. It's pretty cool. I'd actually like to see modern Apple try and do the same thing, but
make an acrylic computer?
No, instead of using acrylic, use the modern advances we have in technology and make it out of glass.
Like Gorilla Glass, the whole thing?
Gorilla Glass entire enclosure.
Okay.
They'd screw it up somehow, but it would be cool to see.
My question is, why would we want to see that?
To see who would spend the inevitable $10,000 on it?
Well, you know, Apple fans will.
Right.
So it's interesting, too. I mean, we have a lot of Apple computers, you know, a lot of iMacs.
We've got iMacs, iBooks, iPads, iPods.
Right. Mac, Power Macintosh, whatever the...
We got Mac Minis.
And there are quite a few of them that I would say aesthetically are very nice computers. I looked at many of the other computers and I'm like, man, they're just all beige boxes. So it's hard to find something that stands out that I say, wow, that's something attractive to me. It's like you look at our Tandy collection, we have so many Tandys, but they all look the same. Mm-hmm. So, you know, if you look at them on the shelf, you're like, well, they're all the same computer, even though they're not. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of an easy choice for me. Okay, so we talked about the prettiest. What's the ugliest computer in our collection?
The computer I chose is actually one of the computers we recently added to our collection.
Interesting.
I chose the revised model of the TI 99 4A.
Seriously?
I did.
You think that's the ugliest computer we have?
Honestly, most of our computers are just whatevers. You know, it's like, it's a computer. There are very few in our collection I'd consider truly ugly. And I think that computer is ugly because it's
Okay, but
just a beige
okay,
slab.
but is it because it's ugly, or it's because you're comparing it to the original model,
which
with
looks great.
its chrome and black and
But also,
that
it looks
whole
really cheesy because, like, it's clearly not a computer that's designed to look like a beige box. Like, it's clearly still a really squished down, terrible keyboard, right? Because the keyboard's so tiny on that thing, and it looks really cheesy. It's like when you have one of those like $10 smartphones that's trying to look like an $800 phone.
like one of the Samsung J series or
Those
whatever.
type
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
That's exactly what it reminds me of.
See,
It's like, I'm a big boy computer too.
I'm really surprised you picked that one. I wouldn't think, there's several candidates that I would say are uglier, and
Okay.
and I'm really surprised you picked that one. My ugliest is the Franklin Ace 1100.
Which one's that?
That's the one that's the Apple II kind of style.
No, that computer's awesome.
No, it's
No.
ugly.
No.
You say it looks like a Commodore PET, and I think the Commodore PET is one of the ugliest things I've ever seen.
If there's one thing the Pet's got going for it, it's its looks.
It's ugly.
It's retro cool.
And the TI isn't?
Yes.
How do you make that distinction?
Well, first of all, it's big and bulky with its matching monitor, and it looks like
You're going to get a hernia moving it to your desk.
It looks like something you'd see in a nuclear bunker.
It looks like something that when you turn it on, the power grid's going to just dim a little bit, yes?
It's got to whirl up and go.
I think it's ugly.
Well,
As a matter of fact, I'll take it a step further. I think almost all the Franklin computers are ugly.
I rather like the Franklin aesthetic. It's like Apple aesthetic from the day, but better.
How's it better?
Because it just
Are you going
is.
to tell me that a Franklin Ace 1100 looks better than a 2 Plus or 2E?
Yes.
How?
Yes, I am.
Are you going to tell me that a Franklin 500 looks better than a 2C?
Yes.
You're wrong.
Well, when
You're
they're not-
absolutely wrong.
when they're not broken like ours is.
Okay, our 500's not broken.
Oh no, it's the 2200, 21. I can't.
20 whatever 100 because they have like four models that are very similar, but yeah, ours is very broken. Even if it were fixed, I'd say it's ugly. I think the Franklins are ugly.
Well, Franklin thinks you're ugly.
Well, I don't think Franklin really has much to say about that anymore. What computer do you think was the most useful out of our collection?
It might have just been because it's fresh in my brain.
Okay.
But I actually chose the IBM ThinkPads that we own.
The laptop's a little...
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
It's fresh in my brain because we, in the same day we're recording this, I recorded our first boot video of that, which may or may not be out by now. I don't know.
I don't know either.
But I was talking with our editor, Micaiah, and with our sound guy, Scott, and just being like, wow, this computer's really actually forward-thinking. It's got way more ports than any modern laptop. It's got a good screen for the time. It's got the little IBM ThinkPad
Eraser.
I would not personally use that term.
That's what
but
we called it
the
when we
term
sold
I-
them.
The term I use for it probably shouldn't be said here.
Okay. Yeah, please don't then. I
And
actually
for a laptop
found...
from like 98.
I found the eraser, for lack of a better term, to be useful, but I thought it always needed to be like one of more options. Like, give me that and a trackpad. Don't just, force that.
But what's the reason it went over the edge for me with usefulness is just the wide variety of software you can run on one of those. Typically they came with Windows 98, right? So you've got that entire
Well, it
line.
depends on when you bought it. The
Right.
ThinkPad line has been around forever. Now, obviously, it's still around as a Lenovo product.
Right. The specific ones we have, I'm
Right.
talking about, though.
I think those were 95, 98 era or so.
Right. And then you can run all the way back to, DOS applications, but you can also upgrade them all the way up to like Windows 7. Probably to mixed results.
Right.
But you can do it.
Okay. Interesting choice. I'm kind of surprised on that one again. So, I picked the Packard Bell Legend 402 CD as
Why?
the most useful. And I'm sure you think I'm crazy right now, right?
It's a 486, maybe.
It's either 46 or Pentium. I think it's
Yeah.
Pentium.
Might be.
Here's the thing. That's the kind of computer that families bought for the whole family back then. So you bought a Packard Bell, you bought it at Best Buy, you bought wherever, and the kids played games on it. You did your finances on it, you did your AOL on it, whatever. It was an all-around useful computer with some upgradability. And I just think that it probably got used in more realms than most of the other retro computers we have, where they're, more tech, focused or whatever.
So you think because it was at the real start of the consumer revolution for computers?
Right.
Okay, I still think mine's better, but sure.
How so?
Because
Can yours be upgraded easily?
no, but it can be docked on
If
an
you-
expansion module, which is way cool.
Okay. I will say that the dock's kind of a cool idea.
Point one for Jacob. Keep score. Keep score.
But they were expensive in the day. I mean, ThinkPads were not cheap computers. And they really were, much more business focused, I would say, than consumer. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure if I agree with you.
But they work super well as consumer laptops if you could, get your hands on one.
I guess.
I used ThinkPads in school when I was a kid.
Okay.
So,
But really, other than the
and,
eraser.
and the kids would steal them.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me.
Of course.
Other than the eraser, though, it's a laptop,
Yeah.
right?
And you know what laptops are?
Portable.
Portable. You know what that means?
Means that you could take them places. Yes, I know what
Yeah.
portable means.
You know what that means? They're more usable. Point two for Jacob.
I really don't like you. We disagree on what useful is. To me, portability is not necessarily a useful thing. But what's the least useful computer that we
boy.
have in our
I
collection?
really hope you picked the one I picked.
I have a feeling that I did, but let's see where you go with it.
I chose the Timex Sinclair
Absolutely.
1000.
That's exactly what I picked. Talk about useless.
Oh my gosh, I love it because it's useless. Like, it's such a useless computer, it's charming.
Right. I mean, it's like we showed it to Micaiah, who has never seen anything like that before. And she's like, oh, it's so cute. Yeah, it's cute. It's useless, but it's cute.
And it's funny, as someone who loves that, the entire YouTube sphere of retro tech stuff, I sit there and I watch LGR videos all the time. I watch 8-bit guy stuff all the time. I love watching nostalgia nerd videos, right?
Right.
All that type of stuff. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh, people keep talking about how great the ZX80 and the ZX81 are, right? They're truly revolutionary systems, even if they're not that great, right? And then we finally get one in our hands with the Timex model. We're American, and I'd always heard the keyboard was bad. But
No, the keyboard is the most non-functional thing I've ever seen in my life. It is. Imagine having a microwave touch, like the touch
I've
controls
had
from a microwave.
microwaves with better control.
Right. It's like, boom.
It's like a dollar store calculator.
No, they're better.
Yeah.
And this thing was popular.
It's like you ever have one of those remote controls in like a hotel room where they've got like the
No, I don't.
real-
I don't touch the remotes in hotel rooms. No.
That's probably a good idea.
Yeah. So I no.
But we picked the same computer, but I picked it first, so another point for Jacob. They're really terrible, useless computers. But that was kind of the point. It was meant to be, a way for someone to figure out if they liked this whole computing thing before dumping real money into it, right?
So what would be the upgrade path?
You would, well, in the UK, you'd just swap it out for a ZX Spectrum. Here, I don't know, just buy a VIC-20.
Okay, I think the VIC-20 is kind of useless to me.
Oh, no. The VIC-20 is a really cool computer.
Why?
It's got great arcade games.
See, gaming is only one factor of computing.
Yes.
And for you, it's a much more important factor than
Well,
me.
for that system, it is, because that's the market that system was going for.
Right.
It wasn't trying to be a Jack Tramiel of all trades.
See, but if your lead is gaming, which is kind of like the Atom and such, it was the lead, I'm kind of bored pretty quick with them.
Well, that's you.
Right.
Maybe you just have a really short attention span.
What?
What? What's next?
So the whole reason we have a retro computer collection is because we find it interesting how the industry has evolved over time, correct?
Sometimes in great ways.
Right.
Sometimes in very, very bad ways.
But it's fascinating, right? Mm-hmm. Out of the computers that we have, which one do you think changed the computer industry the most?
So, I think there's like a 35% chance we pick the same computer.
This would be interesting.
I went for the Apple II, specifically the 2E.
Oh, that was mine.
Point for Jacob.
Now, I had a second one, though, because I knew that was going to probably happen, so I did pick a second.
Oh, you picked a backup?
Well, I picked a close but not there model, so we'll talk about the Apple II first, and then we'll talk about that other one.
Okay. So the Apple II was great, but it was also really lame because it was so early.
You cannot talk about the 2E as being...
No, not the E, the
Okay.
2.
Okay, the Apple II,
Right.
the 2 Plus, fine, but
They're
when you get
fine.
to the 2E...
The 2E is the perfection of the line.
Right.
Right? And it includes so much in it that made it so much more capable of a system than even the previous models upgraded. And there's this divide between the original models, and then the 2E comes out and the 2C comes out, and both I'd consider far more usable as computers.
The 2E is amazing.
Yeah.
I just, hands down, I think it did so much for the education market. It did so much for the home market. It, in my opinion, revolutionized how people perceive the idea of having a computer in their home.
Shame about the GS, though.
Well, yeah.
If I swear, if the Macintosh never existed and, Steve Jobs didn't have to be, the control freak, and the 2GS was able to spread its wings and get the marketing it deserved and not have its CPU crippled, it would be looked at as the most important computer in all of history.
That's an interesting way of looking at it, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we agree. The Apple II, especially the 2E,
Yes.
I think hands down just really did so much for the computer industry and brought the idea of a personal computer to almost everyone's mind.
Right. You can look at almost everyone who came after in, the late 70s into the early 80s and see exactly what part of Apple they were trying to copy.
Right. But I mean, look at the lifespan of the 2E. It's
So long.
ridiculous.
I mean, if you consider the entire Apple II line, you're looking at well into the 1990s.
Absolutely. I think it was, 96 was when it was
Maybe.
officially-
That feels maybe 93, 94, I'd guess.
Yeah, somewhere around there. But I mean, it's a long time.
From, 77 with the Apple II's initial release?
Yeah. I mean,
That's
what other
crazy.
computer really has that kind of lifespan? I guess you can say like the iMacs and such, but to me,
They're not the same computer, though.
right, but they're the same form factor a lot of times.
Yeah, but they're not the same computer.
Okay, so speaking of the iMac, my second tier was the iMac G3, the color bubble CRT.
So I was actually considering that one as well. Mm-hmm. But do you know why I didn't want to include it?
No.
Because I felt it was more important not for computers, but for other electronic devices. Because the iMac's release was directly what Apple used as the inspiration for the release of the iPod, and then the iPhone, and the iPad. And you can clearly see how each one of those was based off of the original iMac success.
See, I agree with you, but the iMac came out at a point where the computer industry was really at a standstill. Like, no one was doing anything interesting. Consumers weren't interested in them. They were buying whatever Best Buy had on the shelf that came with AOL or MSN bundled, so they got the computer for almost nothing.
Right.
They didn't care about them. It didn't matter what it was. They put it on the floor by their desk and hide it. Computers were in a very dark ages of just no one cared. And then you have this bubble come along, this pretty aesthetically pleasing bubble that you can get with multiple color choices. And, like, I think the Dalmatian iMac is amazing.
I like the Opal one. With,
Yeah,
like,
that's
the holograms.
Yeah,
in
that's
it.
awesome.
Yeah.
It reinvigorated interest in, personal computers.
I was a kid during that era, right? So translucent plastic has been ingrained into my brain.
Right.
Between iMacs and all the related products, and then you had Nintendo with the Game Boy Color or the Nintendo 64.
Nintendo 64, yeah.
All that. That's still one of my favorite aesthetics.
Right. It single-handedly brought people back into the PC realm in an excitement that hadn't been there for a while.
It was fun.
Right. So I would say that, while I still think the 2E is the most important computer in the personal computer realm, I think the iMac rejuvenated personal computers for a good 10 years after.
So the Apple II is the most important computer, and the iMac is the most important consumer electronic.
The iMac G3.
Well, yeah.
I mean, as you get further into the iMacs, it's a totally different discussion.
Yeah.
So, and we have a lot of the iMac generations, and I find it funny that when we unbox one or whatever, I look at it and go, what's different? It's the same.
Right.
And it's very boring. I don't find
Apple became the thing they tried to destroy in the first place.
Yeah, I don't find current iMacs to be interesting whatsoever as far as aesthetics go.
The only time they're ever interesting is when they do something wrong.
Huh.
Like the trash can, people laughed at it.
Yeah.
That was the most interesting computer Apple released in years because it looked like a trash can.
But here's the thing. I mean, it probably actually worked well.
Right.
The thermals were probably really good on that thing, and it probably had a good purpose. But it was an awful, consumer design, if you will.
I was trying to go for the professional market, which the professional market doesn't want something like that. I know I mentioned this in a previous episode. How to make a computer for a professional market. Give them a normal case. They don't need anything fancy.
Did the G4 Cube do well with business users?
No. It didn't do well with anyone. What are you talking about?
Good point. Out of all the computers that we've purchased, and there have been a lot of them, which computer were you most disappointed in?
I think my answer will surprise you.
Okay.
I chose the Grid MFP 420S.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
Why?
I chose it because it was a really cool computer and we were so excited to cover it. And we did our first look video and it did well. And we're like, well, let's do our first boot and boot it up and see what's on it. And you guys never saw that video. Because...
Oh, no, didn't we put that out?
No, because everything that could have gone wrong went wrong.
Oh, that's right. You
and
wrote... I forgot.
We'll get to that part. But even before that, we had tons of technical issues, and we were all so frustrated from the day. It was like the worst filming day we'd ever had. And then the computer broke.
The computer broke.
And then it broke again.
The computer broke because you broke it.
I did not break it. So it had...
Jacob is the breaker of technology.
It had one of those buttons that's actually just a really long plastic rod that goes to the actual power supply at the back, and that got out of line. Tandy did those designs all the time in the later part
They
of the
did.
decade, and they're terrible.
2500 series, the
They're
4800 series,
awful.
etc.
And the worst part is because it's a professional computer, everything in the computer case is locked in a chassis, and the lock broke.
The lock broke, and you broke the power switch.
I didn't break the power switch.
It was totally
the power
you.
switch, it functions. It's just stuck.
Yeah, okay. So we have all those other computers with the same case, and no one has broken one but you. So I still maintain you broke it.
No, the universe broke.
All right, so interesting. My most disappointing computer is a Tandy as well. I am very disappointed with our TL2 because it is so broken. Because
it is super broken.
it is to the point where it's sad to look at. It makes my heart hurt whenever I see it on the shelf. And we have not been able to find a replacement. We actually did order one at one point, and it disappeared. So,
Lost in the mail.
wow, lost in a FedEx truck who said they delivered it when they didn't. That's my disappointment. Every time I see it, I'm like, that's just a shame. It's a shame to see it that abused.
And it's one of those things where the plastic that got smashed on the front of it is that type of plastic where instead of cracking, it powderizes, you know?
Yep.
So, like, it's not something you can easily just fix with some super glue.
No, because it just kept breaking and
Right.
breaking and breaking and
It's
breaking.
so brittle and fragile. Maybe we'll have to, like, 3D print a new cover for it.
Well, and we actually did have one of our viewers suggest that they could, manufacture a new cover for it. But, for me, the aesthetic of the computer is the originality of it, and I just don't know. It's very disappointing to me that happened. So, last question, and I'm really curious to see your answer in this one. Out of all of our computers, which one scares you the most?
You won't guess my answer.
I'm not even going to try.
No.
Every time I try and guess where you're going to go with something, I'm normally way off.
I could pick one of these several systems that have exploded on me,
Well,
right?
yeah,
Or
on
will
you.
explode
Again,
in the future.
breaker of technology. They all break with you.
I'm just defending you from the explosion, so that's another point for Jacob.
Okay, so what do you got?
I chose the Atari 800
Fascinating.
for two reasons. One, the last time I went to go look at it, a table broke and it fell on top of me. And
That's not the computer's fault.
you don't know that. Maybe it's cursed.
Like Christine, but with a computer?
Yes. And second of all is anytime anything does go wrong with that computer, because the keycaps are so incredibly loose on it, like if you drop it or if you just bump it or anything.
If you drop it.
Right.
Again, breaker of technology. How many times have you dropped a computer in this office?
We had multiple occasions where we were just trying to set up for the first look video for that computer where keycaps from it fell off. We had to find them so we weren't sitting there with like an O key missing while we were recording. So that's what...
Ironically, what did you do with those keys recently?
Oh, I found out that our revised TI-99, the ugly computer...
It's not ugly.
It's ugly.
It's not.
And the Atari 800 have basically the same exact keycaps. At least ours do, So I swapped them around for fun, and both computers kind of looked better. I don't know.
So,
Um,
the keycaps scare you?
losing the keycap scares me.
Well, that should scare you because I'd be really mad at you if you lost them.
Right. And that would really suck because it's not a computer you can find parts for easily to replace them. And they come off extremely easily. And also, I think it might be cursed. So,
It's not Christine.
what did you choose?
I chose the ugliest computer in our fleet, the Franklin Ace 1100. This thing scares me because Franklin had a lot of problems, a ton of problems with power supplies. I think, if I remember correctly, Scott had said that like 100% of their power supplies of a particular type failed. So I don't ever intend on turning on that computer. If we do, it will be outside of my studio.
No, we're going to go across the street to our old office, which is currently being torn down.
Right.
And we're going to power it on there. And then if it starts a fire, we just did their job for them.
So yeah, that thing scares me. Just, again, besides the fact that it's ugly, because it really is ugly. It's a scary looking piece of hardware.
Ugly.
It's ugly.
No.
It is.
Guys,
but
help
it's
me out here.
scary
It's not
looking.
ugly.
I mean, it's heavy.
You know, it's not like the Commodore 64 is famous for its power supply being really bad as
Right.
well.
But it's an external that we,
You can
get
replace them
replacement,
super
right?
easily. Can't
Right.
do that for an obscure computer made by Franklin.
But take it a step further. Have you looked inside the 1100?
Yeah.
It's very scary looking. There's like capacitors that look like they were hand wired all over. It's scary. I think by far out of our computers, it's the one that I am most afraid of.
I think it adds to its retro allure by being a dangerous piece of hardware. So, like, it increases that patina. So, therefore, it is not only a good-looking computer because it's retro cool, but it's also like got that retro to it. So, another point for me. In short, in closing,
I picked it.
yeah, another point for me.
All right. Well, that's all the questions I have. So,
That's it. That's your outro there?
no, that's your job now.
Oh, okay. You didn't tell me that. Another point for me.
You always do the outro.
So, thank you for watching this episode of Two Guys Talk Tech. That's episode 3. Not that we count.
I count because it means that I've spent 3 hours sitting at this desk with you.
Please make sure to leave a comment down below what you think about our choices. And, of course, join our Discord server. I'm very lonely there. There aren't nearly enough people to talk to yet.
He's lonely all the time.
Well, yeah.
I would really like to know what the techies have in their collection that scares them. Because I think that's one of the aspects of collecting retro technology that's most fascinating to me is you have certain pieces of technology that you just are afraid of. And I'd love to hear what you guys all have.
Mm-hmm. And if you'd like to support us, you can do that. How can they do that?
They can go to our Patreon. We really would appreciate that.
Absolutely. And that's it. So we'll see you guys next time.
See ya.